Hello, brothers and sisters. Nice to talk to you. Thanks, ITC, for this invitation. Mind is the slayer of the real. How to reconcile the aphorism from the voice of the silence with the year's ITC theme, a mind that embraces the universe? It is indeed an intriguing question at first glance. Let's see what is contained in the phrase, mind is the slayer of the real. Let's start with the word real. What is real in this world of Maya, in which we live in constant impermanence? And what is this mind referred to above? In theosophical terminology, this mind must refer to the Kama Manasiki aspect of our sevenfold constitution. That is, the mind that is linked to desires and is separative and analytical. The mind of the ITC title, on the other hand, seems to refer to our Manas Buddhic, synthetic, intuitive, unifying principle, which allow us to access higher knowledge and to perceive the great heresy of separateness, as well as the more macro aspect, the universal mind of which we are an integral part. Let's look at what the book Dhammapada says about these two aspects of mind. All things are preceded by the mind, guided by the mind, and created by the mind. Everything we are today is a result of what we have thought. What we think today determines what we will be tomorrow. Our life is the creation of our mind. If we speak or act with a mind contaminated by illusion, suffering follows us just as the wheel follows the steps of the ox pulling the cart. If we speak or act with a lucid mind, happiness follows us just as the shadow follows the body from which it projects. What examples can we give of the actual use of this mind that is murderous? And what example names can we cite among those who have developed the mind that embraces, that encompasses, that engages, covers, comprises? This is for our reflections. This can help us bring the questioning to the practical level. There are these two aspects that coexist in us, a higher aspect and a lower one. Our happiness or our misfortune will depend on where the pendulum of our actions swings, either up or down. In the history of the human race, the sevenfold constitution is gradually developing. Some beings already have their principles well developed, while the majority are crawling. The advent of the Theosophical movement in the world, starting with the cycle that began in 1875, came precisely to help rescue the ones who were most backward on the path. The masters of wisdom, in their May Angel, H.P. Blavatsky, have made a Herculean effort to accomplish their almost impossible mission to free human lives, to get us out of the quagmire in which we are stuck in this Kali Yuga cycle. William Quan Judge, one of the founders of TS, explained in one of his letters that this dense cycle is, however, very favorable for spiritual advancement. The redoubled effort to progress yields its rewards. He says in the pamphlet, An Epitome of Theosophy, In the Kali Yuga, we are mesmerized by the effort of the immense body of images in the astral light, composed of all actions, thoughts, and so on of our ancestors, whose lives tended in a material direction. These images influence the inner man, who is conscious of them by suggestion. In a brighter age, the influence of such images would be in the direction of truth. Look at this other passage where Judge draws attention to the connection that exists between psychic laws, the progress of humanity, and the help we can receive. In a cycle which has the descending and ascending arc, the adepts have to wait for the opportune moment before they can help the human race to rise. They cannot and must not interfere with karmic law. So they return to work actively in the spiritual sense when they know that the cycle is about to reach its decisive turning point. And it was at a pivotal moment that the Theosophical Society was founded, in order to instill a new quality of thinking in the minds of humanity as a whole. Here we will insert a quote from Gottfried de Purucker. Mind is one of the innate functions or attributes of the fundamental being or consciousness of the monadic entity. Therefore, a vehicle or instrument of the monad or spirit or God within, a name given to the sum of the states of consciousness grouped under thought, will, and feeling. Mind is a link, a bridge between the spiritual and the material. Let us turn to H.P. Blavatsky. The mind is the link between earthly man and the higher self, who is the only sufferer and who is in constant danger of being dragged down by those passions which may be reawakened at any moment, leading him to perish in the abyss of matter. Mahatma, and Atma. Initially, these three terms resemble a play on words, but they have an implicit meaning. Let's see. What is Mahat? It is the great universal mind, the third aspect of the Logos, the one that contains everything in its bosom. Everything that can be thought of in a Manvantara is already contained in it a priori. In the universe, nothing is created. Everything whirls as in Shiva's dance. Everything emanates in an eternal becoming. Man is a co-creator or co-modeler, but he works with previously existing material. We are craftsmen, cosmic artists, giving our brush strokes on the great canvas of life. What is a Mahatma or an Adept? He is one in whom the Atma, this universal principle, has been developed to an exceptional level. He lives and feels at the origin of things. He perceives and lives according to the laws of the cosmos. He has a mind that embraces the universe and welcomes the orphaned, zigzagging humanity. How can we develop the Buddhic mind and not the kamic mind? Or, how can we develop the Buddhi mind from the mastery and knowledge of the Kama mind that is only desire? Looking around, it's easy to see the consequences of Kama dominance in human beings. No need to say. Our link with Theosophy in this new existence is a differentiating factor from the great mass of humanity. A difference which brings us the duty to get closer to our fellows and help in this joint effort to reduce ignorance in the world. As Lord Buddha said, ignorance is the greatest cause of suffering. How should a theosophist work? Of course, there is no unique way. Each one of us is a means of action in this world. When we consciously link ourselves to the movement and start to walk the path by the natural law that regulates this access, our qualities and defects come to the surface and at an accelerated speed. We need to discover who we are, what our potential for good is, and what danger we might pose. Nothing falls outside the lens of the great silent watcher. The real goal to be aimed at is to open the lower nature to the higher influence, so that the spiritual nature can radiate through it and become its guide and ruler. This nature can only be said to be cultivated to the extent that it may have a vehicle prepared for that purpose. And that means that the lower manas must be the servant of the higher manas. So even the lower manas can be a useful tool in our daily life, but it needs the higher manas. When we read a book on theosophy, for instance, even if you do not fully understand it, the systematic practice of reading it creates new furrows in our mind, opening it to new and wider perspectives. New horizons open up. We begin to move from the particular to the universal. We are that which sounds in us. We are part of the great whole. The macro pulsates in each cell of our body and allows us the glimpse of the unity of all things. The exercise of altruism is one of the keys to the embracing mind, and thinking with the heart is its endowment. In other words, the practice of altruism is one of the surest and safest ways to advance on the path. It is one of the keys to the embrace of the mind. And thinking with the heart is its investiture, our shield in the performance of duty. Our great teacher, HPB, is our greatest example of altruism, of totally selfless devotion to the Master's cause. How did she manage to develop this all-embracing, all-encompassing, all-comprising mind? It certainly didn't start in this life. A master says that none of us is coming into contact with Theosophy for the first time, for there is no effect without a cause. Such a magnanimous work and such a gigantic ideal require the arms of a Hercules and the mind of an Isis. How many lives will it take to forge such a character? In our case, the first step has already been taken. And here we are in the school that prepares servants. In this school, no one is asked to do more than he can offer. And the service must be voluntary, conscious, determined by each one's free will. As we engage in this struggle, better for us and better for humanity, says the Master. Our mind naturally feels an urge to embrace the other, to welcome the other. A feeling of compassion begins to arise. Theosophy also teaches us that there is no such thing as big or small in the economy of nature. There are no greater or lesser duties, but rather the duty that is ours to perform. And it's better to fulfill one's dharma, even if imperfectly, than to fulfill well what is the duty of another one. Another's dharma contains many dangers, as says Bhagavad Gita. Our mind is a spark of the great universal mind. Good and evil coexist within us. Mastery consists in being able to discern the wheat from the chaff during our journey. We harbor feelings that we would never imagine that we could harbor in our innermost being. It is necessary to look at them without judgment, but turned to lighten our shadows. And here we need to leave death, the death of doubt, fear, and anxiety. We cannot run away from ourselves, and the embrace of our mind is not meant to hurt anyone, to scratch anyone. This year's ITC theme is very timely, for it sheds light on what is going on in the world and in us. If the world is a reflection or a synthesis of the vibratory quality of its environment, of course, it is unwise to shirk the responsibility for what we have created around us. If the macro and the micro coexist in us as seed, it is up to us to unfold that seed so that the fruit will honor the tree from which it sprang. What state is our mind in at this moment? Are we more identified with the lower mind or with the higher mind? The Theosophist lives permanently on the threshold of his choice, since you cannot serve two lords at the same time. How wide can we open our minds, our arms, in the warm and compassionate embrace of welcome and gratitude for the opportunity to serve? To learn and serve is a great privilege, an achievement, a merit. How much can we contribute to enlarge more and more the called cross-pollination, flooding the world with Theosophy, a world inhabited by a humanity stubbornly resistant to the truth, the same as 1,000,000 years ago. From this, we can see that the task is not easy. But we have great examples to inspire and assist us to keep the link intact and not let the last incarnation of HPB be in vain. Our duty is to embrace, to sow seeds. Nature takes care of the harvest or the fruits. Once in Brazil, more specifically in Rio de Janeiro, there was a campaign called Embrace the Lagoon. In an attempt to save a famous lagoon in the city from pollution, thousands of people gathered around it and, hand in hand, symbolically wrapped it in a big hug of healing and awareness. Let's unite our arms, our hands, our minds, and radiate as much of our potential for good and harmony as we can. Let us be good transformers so that the powerful light emanating from the great beings finds in us the appropriate channels of expression. We know we can. Let's do our part. Let's try. Let's go. Thank you.